From the very beginning in 1994, I said to the gay community, I do not favor same-sex marriage. I oppose same-sex marriage, and that has been my view. But if people are looking for someone who will discriminate against gays or will in any way try and suggest that people that have different sexual orientation don't have full rights in this country, they won't find that in me.
When's the last time you stood up and spoke out for increasing gay rights?
Right now.
Senator Santorum, would you be a voice for increasing gay rights in the party?
Surprised it's coming to me. What? What was your question?
Would you be a voice for speaking out for gay rights in your party? And if not, why not?
I would be a voice in speaking out for making sure that every person in America, gay or straight, is treated with respect and dignity and has the equality of opportunity. That does not mean that I would agree with certain things that the gay community would like to do to change laws with respect to marriage or respect to adoption and things like that. So you can be respectful. This is the beautiful thing about this country. James Madison called the First Amendment, he called it the perfect remedy. And that is people of all different backgrounds, diversity, opinions, faith, can come into the public square and can be heard. And can be heard in a way that's respectful of everybody else. But just because you don't agree with someone's desire to change the law doesn't mean you don't like them or you hate them or you want to discriminate against them. But you're trying to promote things, promote things that you think are best for society. And I do so, and I think if you watch the town hall meetings that I've been doing all over New Hampshire, I do so in a respectful tone. I listen to the other side. I let them make their arguments, and then we do so in a very respectful way. And you know what? We may not agree. That's why we leave it open to the public to be able to elect members of Congress and the Senate and the President who support their ideas.
What if you had a son who came to you and said he was gay?
I would love him as much as I did the second before he said it. And I would try to do everything I can to be as good a father to him as possible.
Governor Perry, we're going to move on. Right to work, which outlaws mandatory union membership, as you know, continues to be a major issue in the state of New Hampshire. You've spoken about promoting having states pass state laws. What about on the federal level? Do you see this as a federal issue and one that you would promote as president? Or is it a state
Actually,
by
it
state?
is a federal issue, and it's a federal issue because of the law that was passed that forces the states to make the decision about whether or not they're going to be right to work. So Jim DeMint's legislation, I would support that, of repealing that legislation that forces states to make that decision to be a right to work rather than all of this country being right to work. Listen, I'm not anti-union. I'm pro-job. And the way you promote this country's rehabilitation from the Obama administration's attack on job creation is by taxes and regulation, particularly the regulatory side, and pulling those regulations that have gone forward over the course of the last since '08 and test them all for, do they create jobs or do they kill jobs? And if they kill jobs, you throw them out. That will make more difference in this country from the standpoint. I'm a right-to-work guy. I come from a right-to-work state, and I will tell you, if New Hampshire wants to become the magnet for job creation in the Northeast, you pass that right-to-work legislation in this state.
I'd like to ask both Governor Romney quickly and Senator Santorum quickly, what positive contributions do labor unions provide in this country at this point in the 21st century?
Well, the Carpenters Union, for instance, trains their workers to be more effective on the job, and when they compete against non-union workers, why they do that on a fair basis. If that happens, that's a positive contribution. But let me just say this with regards to unions. I agree with Governor Perry. Right-to-work legislation makes a lot of sense for New Hampshire and for the nation. But also, let's not forget the government unions and the impact they're having. If we're going to finally pull back the extraordinary political power government unions are exerting in this country, we're going to have to say that people who work for the government workers, should have their compensation tied to that which exists in the private sector. People who are government servants, public servants, should not be paid more than the taxpayers who are caring for
Governor,
them.
can I just, Senator, very quickly, Senator, because we're about to hit a hard break, a quick comment on this?
Yeah, I will. I've signed a pledge that I would support an national right to work. When I was it was mentioned this last night, when I was a senator from Pennsylvania, I didn't vote for it because Pennsylvania is not a right to work state, and I didn't want to vote for a law that would change the law in Pennsylvania, number one. Number two, what can unions do? As Mitt mentioned, they can do training. They also do a lot in the community. I work with a lot of labor unions in Philadelphia and other places to do a lot of community involvement work, and they try to participate as good members of the community like a business does.
I got to cut you off. I apologize. We have a mandatory break. We'll be back with more questions in just a moment. We have come to the end of our first hour of this NBC News Facebook debate here in New Hampshire. A few NBC stations may be leaving us now, but for most of you and everyone watching live on MSNBC and online, please stay tuned.
The NBC News Facebook Republican presidential candidates debate continues from New Hampshire. Now, the moderator of Meet the Press, David Grady.
We are back for our final half hour. So much discussion, Speaker Gingrich, on Facebook in the course of this debate about jobs, and you can understand why. And we've talked about spending. We've talked about economic growth. It was Governor Romney who made the point to a young person who approached him that if he were president and when this person got out of college, he or she'd have a job. If President Obama has a second term, he or she will not have a job. Isn't that the kind of thing that makes people angry with politicians? Easy answers like that?
Well, I don't think that's an easy answer. I think that's a statement of fact. You know, but let me go back to what John DeStesso said, because it's exactly the same question. The long-term answer to $4 heating oil is to open up offshore development of oil and gas, open up federal lands to oil and gas, flood the market, as Dr. Paul said, make supply and demand work for us, not against us. The price will come down. Under Obama, 2011 was the highest price of gasoline in history. It is a direct result of his policies, which kill jobs, raise the price of heating oil and gasoline, weaken the United States, increase our dependence on foreign countries, and weaken our national security in the face of Iran trying to close the Straits of Hormuz. So the right president opening up in a Reagan tradition and using the massive development of American energy, there's 3.2% unemployment in North Dakota. There's a hint here. You can actually have jobs, lower price heating oil, which, by the way, means less lie-heap spending, so you get more revenue for the federal government from royalties, less spending on lie-heap subsidy, lower price. People are happier all the way around. That's what supply-side economics was originally all about in the 1970s.
But Governor Romney, on this economic question, you blame President Obama for the jobs crisis, but when you look at the data and a positive trend line, he still only gets the blame and none of the credit. How come?
Actually, I don't blame him for the recession and for the decline. What I blame him for is having it go on so long and going so deep and having a recovery that's been so tepid. Businesses I talk to all over the country that would normally be hiring people are not hiring. And I ask them why. And they say because they look at the policies of this administration and they feel they're under attack. When you have an administration that tries to raise taxes and has on businesses, when it puts in place Obamacare that's going to raise the cost of health care for businesses, when they stack the National Labor Relations Board with labor stooges, which means that the policies relating to labor are now going to change dramatically in a direction they find uncomfortable, when you have Obamacare that places more mandates on them, when you have Dodd-Frank, which makes it harder for community banks to make loans, all these things collectively create a reality of a president who has been anti-investment, anti-jobs, anti-business, and people feel that. And if you want to get this country going again, you have to recognize that the role of government is not just to catch the bad guys, important as that is. It's also to encourage the good guys. All right. And to return America to a land of opportunity.
Back to John and Andy. John, go ahead.
Governor Romney, I'm going to stay with you for one moment here on the talking about regulation. One of your prime New Hampshire supporters, Senator Kelly Ayotte, has said, quote, New Hampshire should not be the tailpipe for pollutants from out-of-state power plants. Many Senate Republicans attacked an EPA rule limiting air pollution that affects downwind states. But she and others, including Scott Brown, joined with the president and Senate Democrats to block a repeal effort. Now, is this an example of this cross-state air pollution rule of fair regulation, something that we in the Northeast are very concerned about in terms of pollution? Or is this overregulation, job-killing overregulation?
Well, I'm not familiar with the specific regulation as it applies to New Hampshire, but I do believe that we have a responsibility to keep the air clean, and we have to find ways to assure that we don't have the pollution of one state overwhelming the ability of another state to have clean air. I know in my state of Massachusetts, we received a lot of air from the rest of the country, obviously given the winds coming from the west of the country to the east, and so the responsibility in our state was to get the emissions from our power plants down. That's one of the reasons why we moved to natural gas. And really, by the way, it's discussion about energy and security and getting the cost of gasoline down. The big opportunity here is not just a new oil distribution system, but it's natural gas. We have massive new natural gas reserves that have been found in Pennsylvania, in North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas. Natural gas, cheap, a fraction of the cost per BTU of oil. If we want to help people in New England have not only homes and businesses that emit less pollutant into the air and therefore would have cleaner air and also have lower cost energy, it's let's build out this natural gas system so that we can take advantage of that new enormous source of American economic strength.
Speaker Gingrich, what exactly is an environmental solutions agency? I think a lot of people might not know or understand that why you want to disband the EPA and set up something that kind of looks like the EPA.
If you look at the EPA's record, it is increasingly radical, it's increasingly imperious, it doesn't cooperate, it doesn't collaborate, and it doesn't take into account economics. The city of Nashville recently had a dump that was cited by EPA. They went down to find out what was it being cited for, and they told them, frankly, we don't know. We can't find the records that led to this citation, and we're not exactly sure what it referenced, but it must be bad or we wouldn't have sent it out. In Iowa, they had a dust regulation underway because they control particulate matter. And I do agree on clean air. There are things they should do that are right. But dust in Iowa is an absurdity. And they were worried that the plowing of a cornfield would leave dust to go to another farmer's cornfield. And they were planning to issue a regulation. In Arizona, they went in on the dust regulation and suggested to them that maybe if they watered down the earth, they wouldn't have these dust storms in the middle of the year. And people said to them, you know, the reason it's called a desert is there's no water. Now, this is an agency out of touch with reality, which I believe is incorrigible, and you need a new agency that is practical, has common sense, uses economic factors, and in the case of pollution, actually incentivizes change, doesn't just punish it.
All right, Andy.
Governor Perry, your party's last nominee, John McCain, wrote in the Washington Post in an op-ed about a year ago, his words, "I disagree with many of the president's policies, but I believe he is a patriot sincerely intent on using his time in office to advance our country's cause. I reject accusations that his policies and beliefs make him unworthy to leave America or opposed to its founding ideals." Agree?
I make a very proud statement and a fact that we have a president that's a socialist. I don't think our founding fathers wanted America to be a socialist country. So I disagree with that premise that somehow or another that President Obama reflects our founding fathers. He doesn't. He talks about having a more powerful, more centralized, more consuming and costly federal government. I am a 10th Amendment believing governor. I truly believe that we need a president that respects the 10th Amendment, that pushes back to the states, whether it's how to deliver education, how to deliver health care, how to do our environmental regulations. The states will considerably do a better job than a one-size-fits-all Washington, D.C. led by this president.
Can I just jump in with Senator Santorum? Governor Perry, you call the president a socialist. I wonder